start talking. Yeah, the way in which we create our own reality is such a mystery to us. Many of us in this room, in this group today, had early experiences of this as a kind of startling admonition from the New Age circles that we're all involved in. Well, I prior to all of you, but in the 80s, say, in the late 70s, in the 80s and the 90s, you create your own reality. And I used to do a offering that I entitled, "If I create my own reality, why am I getting this shit?" And everybody was very responsive to that because that was their experience, right? I am trying to create a reality of light and love and connection and ease, and there are piles everywhere, right? And so we start to look at now through that lens that we've all shared, most of us in this room have shared, of Paul Levy's The Quantum Revelation, in which we understand the dynamic of the way this reality works, whereas it's been out of the Newtonian physics, a mechanical movement of stars and planets and psychological issues and handling things in the material world, moving shit around, right? Whereas that, and now we go to the subtle, beautiful, expansive understanding that as viewed, so appears. And the subtlety that comes to us and our way of being, first with ourselves and then with our world, and the way in which that opens. It's like a flower blooming. It's magical and mystical. But that's our option, and that's I think the most, the word gospel means the good news, but I do believe that this understanding of the nature of reality is the good news. It's we have it, it's ours, and I can be with it. And what we know in this group and with everybody I've ever worked with, and many people way beyond that have done the Walsack work, the 6 Steps to Freedom work, is that all of awakening has to do with allowing something to fall away. It's all about subtraction. There was the mystic medieval monk Meister Eckhart who said it's waking up is about subtraction. I think he actually said spirituality is about subtraction. But we find that letting go of everything that's not true, that's not who I am, then reveals a new world, a new reality, a new opening into wonder and magic. So the work that we do, and everybody in this room and on the call has done this work with me to varying degrees, sometimes in groups, often individually, and it has to do with being triggered and using that to see what it is that I'm believing. That's the information I'm offering into the quantum field that it takes and then shows up as a reality. Sneaky thing, isn't it? I mean, it's just so amazing. It's the, I always say I was surprised. I was surprised, but not amazed at what happened. I was amazed, not surprised, at this subtle way in which we partake and participate, because except when we're caught in fear, we experience reality as subtle, as elusive, as movement and wonder. We experience it that way. And so we recognize what this explanation of creation and creating our experience and our reality, we recognize it to be true. We recognize it to be true. And we have the experience of it. Oftentimes we've had the experience of it, and we may call it synchronicity, or a surprise, or who knew that was going to happen, or that's what I wanted all my life, and now I've got it, but I don't know how I did that. Well, the field is alive and well, and it responds. Out of entanglement theory, everything is available to touch everything else, and then to materialize, right? Materialize as a person, as a situation, as finance, as music, as wonder. And we have that confirmation all the time, so that we can begin to seriously take on this practice of believing who I am, because that's the information I'm putting into the quantum field, right? It's important, right? It's creating your reality. You know, this is not a small thing we're talking about here. It's the most important thing to understand. My world is a reflection of who I am being, and fundamentally, in the work that we do, who I am being to myself. I'm not good enough. I don't matter. I'll never have what I want. All of that we think of as information carries a frequency. And if that's the frequency that we're emitting, and the field is in response to that, the field has no problem with you not being good enough. It's like, oh, not good enough, matches that, right? We can see that only our minds are caught in polarity. The quantum field, reality is not caught in polarity. That's an imposition that we've created. That's where we create limits and equations and cause and effect. And there's a much larger reality than that limited way of considering reality, and especially of considering ourselves. And so as we move into that space that we access during meditation, which I call awake awareness, I call it the field of allowing, we have the vibrancy of all possibility, potentiality that arises there, and it's humming there. And when we go into meditation and we disappear into that field and know ourselves as that, then we are experiencing no limits. And that is for the human being. The first experience of no limits is to be kind to yourself, to come home to yourself, to see through perhaps the 6 steps to freedom, to see what I've been believing that has kept me caught in a discomfort, in a limitation, in a judgment, in a fear, because all of those early conclusions are based in an experience of the child, an experience of fear. And so, you know, I don't know if there are other realities that were set up like this one. I think that whoever did it, whomever, he has a great sense of humor. But you know, when we get caught in our limitation because of our own self-judgment, nobody's laughing, right? Because it's not funny. It's imposing, it's limiting, and we believe that we are that. And that's where the suffering resides. And so today, anything that we can do to see more clearly, to see through the lens of pure love, the lens of allowing, the lens of everything is possible. If we have created a lens that has a distortion in it because of our self-judgment, then that's all the information that the quantum field receives from us. It's I understand that it can be a little mind-boggling. When we first in the Sangha here, and our Thursday Sangha, started looking at Paul Levy's book, The Quantum Revelation, we all were suffering with what I called quantum vertigo. It's like, really? That's the way it works? It's like so disorienting, because we have been so caught in the projection of an external reality, looking like materiality, looking like cars and people and tables and chairs and sanghas and TVs and AI and computers. Yeah. And so the wonder of the way in which worlds are created is just that. It is full of wonder. And as we come to ourselves and we have dispelled the idea that was imposed when we were maybe 6 months old and didn't get fed on time. Right? We had a mother who had read Dr. Spock and thought we should be self-soothing. What a a kind of what you call curse that is, right? Reading Dr. Spock. And so we concluded in that neglect, what we experienced as neglect, a conclusion about ourselves that we don't matter or that we're not good enough. And then it's game on from there, because that's the frequency of our identity. And that's the information that's being offered into the quantum field ongoingly. We're never, because that got repressed, we immediately repress whatever our conclusion is, because it's anathema to us. We don't want to believe I'm not good enough or I don't matter. And so with the repression, this is just the psychological aspect of it, it will get projected. Now we talk about projection through a particular lens, a distortion lens. One of our favorite quotes is from Anna East Nin, who said, we don't see the world as it is, we see the world as we are. And that's pointing to the field, the lens of distortion that we are perceiving through. And so somebody doesn't acknowledge me when I walk in, and I conclude they don't like me. They've never liked me, right? They never answer my calls. They don't text, they don't call. So we can see how we participate in how the world shows up. So the beauty of understanding this, well, there's much wonder and beauty to it, but at the level, the operational level, we have this work to do. And because realities are subject to perception, we have access to this. We can see through being triggered what we're believing about ourselves. We can use the six steps to freedom process to see what that was specifically, and go back and find out what we concluded that it meant about us, and to understand that that conclusion got installed. And that installation is like a screen through which consciousness projects, and that's the information into the quantum field, which responds in kind. So this is the radical nature of reality. We have the fun and the excitement of coming to love it, and to realize that we have access to all of it and to the wonder of it, the way I started when I started the Dharma talk today. But now, if there are any questions about that, or anybody who wants to do the work, that is the message for today, the reiteration of how it works and how we participate in it. And I may have missed some things that are important to some of you that you can remind me of, or you can ask for explication of. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Yeshi.
Yeshi.
Hang
Hi,
on,
sweetheart.
let me spotlight you. And Polly.
Hi, Polly.
Hi, sweetheart.
So good to be with you.
I'm so glad you're here.
Yeah. So my question or my experience that I'm trying to, match up with what you were talking about, which I, understand. And my experience is that I've been having a physical pain for quite a long time. And I don't know how this fits in with what you're saying. Like, is it something that, I'm creating? And if so, how can I work with it?
Right. Yeah. Well, that's, the human mind in its polarity will make that kind of equation. I've got a pain, I'm creating it. Or what can I do about it? But the larger truth is that upon incarnation into a body mind, we have been against ourselves from the beginning, right? Now, because of the well-being of the young body, we don't experience that. The body's been taking the hit since that very first conclusion, I don't matter. And now we have a physical we have a physical example of that conclusion, I don't matter, with an ache or a pain or a diagnosis or whatever. This is not to put blame on the person, it's to understand that we now have the opportunity to be kind to ourselves, to be on our own side, to know that we are not this body. We have a body, it has an issue, it has a pain because it's been taking the hit from the incarnational beginning, from birth, in other words, or before for some of us. That's been taking that hit of the self-rejection, right? It's like you've kicked the cat out over and over and over again, and you expect it to come sit in your lap and say meow. We've been rejecting ourselves, believing we're not good enough. And the body's taking the hit of that frequency of the rejection. So the first step, Yeshi, is to start to be kinder to yourself, right? To understand that, and this wound, this discomfort or this problem may be a trigger that can take you to an early wounded conclusion. And you and I have done the 6 steps together, right?
Definitely.
Yeah. So that you can see what it is that you're believing that your body's been subjected to. It's not to create blame at all. It's to create understanding of how it works so that we can work it in a way that's helpful to us in this incarnational vehicle. So if you came upon the conclusion when you were an infant even, or a 2-year-old, that I'm not good enough, then that's been the frequency, and the body's been receiving that frequency ever since then. Now we suppress it, and we try all kinds of adaptive behaviors to not experience what we concluded, but the energy of that is still operative. And so it's at that level of the work, to be on your own side, to be kind to yourself, and to once we come home to ourselves, it's like a kind of waking up, then that will start to relieve some of the discomfort, some of the issue, maybe not to a discernible degree, but that frequency does. And then we can invite ourselves to peace and freedom and love and ease, and make it a priority to notice when we're self-critical, a priority to notice when we're self-judging, when we are putting ourselves down, when we are carrying a frequency that is fundamentally against us, because that's at the heart of the matter. The body takes the hit. And now this discussion doesn't go into incarnational issues. There are those for sure. But if we deal with exactly where we have access, which is kindness to ourselves, and go from there. So with that said, Yeshi, do you have another question about it?
Well, I can feel that, every time I feel this pain, which is quite often during a day, I feel this disappointment with myself. Yeah, it's like, and it is, it's not a kindness, it's a disappointment. Like, why am I still feeling this way? And I feel like I'm failing. Yeah. So
you can see how that correlates to my pointer, right?
Yeah.
You're against yourself. It's like you're welcoming, like, I'm here for you, this pain, this body issue, and I am on your side, and I am awareness, and I've got this I am with you. It's like that very resistance to the pain in the body, which most of us have when we have a bodily condition, because the resistance is, I don't want it to be that way. But the effect of that frequency is rejection, which increases the issue actually. So, you know, for you to say to that pain, I'm here for you now. I know what's going on. You've always felt whatever you think the wound may be that correlates with this. It may not be obvious, but it may occur to you, right? I know you've always felt that you weren't good enough, but you've been wonderful. You've been everything. You've been as good as you could be considering the conditions. But now awake awareness, I am here with you.
Mm.
And that I am the one who holds you. I am the one who heals you. And I am present now. Not the me that felt like she wasn't good enough and is irritated at herself for being weak or in pain. But the truth of who you are is awareness shining. Yeah.
That's really helpful.
So
that has been the part of me that, that's like just disappointed and mad at myself, and not the part that's here for me and is holding me in love. Yeah. Thank you so much, Polly.
Thank you, Yeshi. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Yeshi. I'm having some computer challenges, so I'm not able to spotlight people without my computer freezing. So we'll just go without the spotlight today. Anyone else in the room or in the Zoom room who's working something or would like the nectar of Holly's insight?
It's wonderful that we're all totally enlightened.
I know.
I love that.
I'm not quite there yet.
Okay.
Nobody else has anything. So the other day, I found myself on a phone call back with people that work for me in Oklahoma. And I don't know if I found myself talking as if I was irritated. Okay, so the situation is I was repeating something for what felt like the 29th time. And I probably had the tone of voice as if I was irritated. I don't really know if I was irritated or if I was just kind of by default animated to express my unhappiness. Sure, I'm not the only person who's ever done that. You know, but I mean, it's kind of like if the dog does something, I might say no to the dog. Well, I'm not mad, but I'm going to all the exaggeration to get the dog's attention. And so at any rate, I'm still not sure if I was irritated or not. But when the phone call was over, I was like, heck, I got to do better than that. And I realized I had done that several times recently with these people. And so I'm not sure if it's a habit or if I'm actually getting triggered or what. So I wasn't sure whether to address it as if I was just going to change a habit, or should I address that as a trigger, or?
So what were you feeling, Robert, in the dynamic between you and them? What were you feeling?
Well, I don't remember because I didn't ask myself in the moment. It wasn't until after, an hour later that I'm kind of reviewing the phone call and going, I've got to do better. I may have been a little irritated, but I certainly wasn't angry. And I wasn't angry over the particular leaky roof for sure. If anything, it was the system of dealing with those issues. The whole conversation wasn't about the one issue, it was about the system and how we're going to deal with these issues. So that's somewhat, maybe a little irritated, but I don't know, like I said, I don't know whether it's that or it's just a habit I've fallen into
Right,
of acting irritated.
right. Well, sometimes we have the experience that if something is successful, and sometimes somebody who's in charge of the group or whatever might have confused being efficient or successful or with being irritated. They listened more that time, and this will not be a conscious equation, but you may have had the experience of, just like you know that the dog is going to respond if you say no in a strong, loud voice.
Right, as
Right.
opposed to if I just go, no,
Right, right, right.
that doesn't get the dog's attention at all.
Right, yeah, so we have to remind ourselves that these people we're trying to lead into good behavior are not dogs. And that we can adjust to see what, I suspect that you got irritated because you weren't sure they were hearing you. Or that you-
If anything, that, yes.
Yeah, and so that's an inquiry to make with them, so that you are actually asking more questions instead of laying the trip on them.
Makes sense.
Yeah, so what that would do is that it takes you out of the mode of believing they should have already understood or done something differently, and into the mode of connecting with them in order to get what you want. Which is a much different approach energetically. And it won't carry, it's not likely to carry the frequency of irritation. Or because all of that, whoever those people were in that Oklahoma group you were working with, all of them deal with childhood wounds.
Oh, yeah.
And every one of them has some version of, I can't do it right, or I'm not good enough, or I'm a piece of
Right.
shit. And now you are triggering all of those, so that they don't listen is probably a part of their adaptive behavior to not experience the wound. Yeah. And that may or may not be true, but you will notice, and you are aware enough in terms of group interaction and your role with that group to modify your expression. Which is what I'm suggesting.
Okay, well, I'd already decided I wanted to change something. I just wasn't sure which direction to go to change, so I appreciate the point.
Good, good, yeah.
So, thank you.
Would you say, Polly, there are no small triggers or irritations?
No, there are none. There are no small ones. There are no insignificant ones. If you're triggered, that's an opening into something. It may be a small irritation that you feel may open into the most predominant identity issue that you have about yourself that creates all kinds of havoc and what would I say, a disappointment in your life, right? So the least little irritation is like, because I can promise you, when there is no screen that's distorted by a self-judgment, there just aren't any triggers. And that's, I'm here to represent that. That happy, easy, peaceful persona. Yeah, it's not a persona, it's our true nature.
Can I say something?
Yeah, please.
First, thank you for bringing something up to be worked on. And I appreciate that you're going around to question, when, and it's just a curiosity, when someone brings forward something like this, like a possible invitation, I'm just gonna leave it at that with a little smile.
Right.
And then there's a belief underneath that was stated in relationship, like they're not gonna listen to any given example, like a dog, right? And would there be a questioning of the belief that might be held that I have to, because he's also questioning whether it's a habit or not a habit. I mean, this is what I'm hearing in the conversation that Robert brought up. And so what I'm asking you, would there be a clarification of like asking inquired questions of self? Do I feel heard when I'm speaking? Do I feel like I need to raise my voice in order to be speaking with authority? I'm asking questions, so would that be the inquiry? Would we also turn that inquiry in for ourselves? It's just a question open to asking you.
Yeah, no.
When I hear that, I would went just immediately to
Hmm.
his questioning of like, is it a habit or is it not how I'm perceiving it? How can I do it? And then it was an explanation of that, so.
Yeah, well,
If I
the
can ask
inquiry was
there.
already going on in him. As he reconsidered the conversation that just happened. And so I don't know if you did the 6 steps or not. But you were looking at the way in which you expressed and how it seemed to impact the group, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the beginning of the inquiry. And what you're pointing to, Star, is always good to do the 6 steps. What was I feeling? When you were expressing that you weren't sure you were being heard or whatever the concern was, then that could be used as a trigger.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Star.
Just curious.
Yeah.
And he is a projector.
Hmm?
He is a projector.
We sneak in human design here without notice.
And that issue is not being heard. That is the issue of the projector not
Right.
being heard.
That's right.
So,
Sneaky.
Oh. Church design that way.
What you,
you're designed that way.
right.
Well, designed to work with that issue.
There you go.
Definitely designed to work with that, have that be a core issue. That's, yeah, to learn to be skillful with that.
So if the core issue is not seated or fueled by a wound, then it's different than if it's and I do think sometimes our design points to what's likely to be a trigger, for
Mhm.
sure. That's part of the teaching that we do together.
Yeah, Nina.
Comment, question. So I went snorkeling today, which was a big success because I had to figure out how to get the proper equipment and then how to get to the place to snorkel and then how to get into the water with my fins on. So I felt very successful
Totally.
and I had a good time. And somehow while I was snorkeling, I had this insight, unrelated, at least logically unrelated, to lead with curiosity rather than judgment.
Mhm.
And that it felt so profound to me because I don't. I think, in Buddhism, there are 3 personality types, and I'm aversive. And I know this about myself, and my whole family is. So I was raised, and we've talked about this, to kind of enter a situation with a critical eye. And so I was thinking about that when you were giving the talk just now about, I don't quite know how to articulate that actually creates discomfort for myself
Mhm.
because I'm not at ease. I'm looking at what's wrong,
Right, exactly.
and that's painful. I have a friend, a really lovely, brilliant woman friend, and she's kind of the opposite, like everything's just fantastic. Which I'd like to be more like her, but not entirely.
Right.
Yeah, but it does, like I'll go to a performance with her of something, dancing or music thing. And I'll be looking for, my mother used to do this with the Bolshoi ballet, I'd be looking at like, how is the extension not perfect and the point
Right.
a little odd. So why are we looking at the Bolshoi ballet like that?
Right,
It's the Bolshoi ballet.
right.
But I was taught that. So I guess my question is, I'm not sure how to let it go, because I think it feels protective,
It is, yeah.
right?
Mhm.
It feels like it serves me in some way, even when I'm seeing that it creates suffering.
Mhm.
So one of the things I learned today that struck me so hard as I'm looking at fish. Like when antidote is to look with curiosity
Mhm.
rather than judgment.
True.
And it sort of, it flips the switch off in a way.
Yeah.
I think my question to you, so that your talk today was very consistent, because if I'm looking critically at something, and that's the lens,
Mhm.
I'm suffering. I don't even know if it has to do with the quantum field, it just has to do with.
Right, is it?
immediate. It feel right there, but then that's how I get that, is the disappointment that things aren't right, that. Anyway, that's my question. Is that a question? Like, how do I turn that off or modify it?
Yeah,
So-
curiosity is a brilliant option. See, when our self-judgment goes, all judgment is self-judgment. That was very prevalent in your family, like you just shared with us. And so it became the way to be in relationship to others, to information, to whatever's showing up. And it was valued in your family. And typically our adaptive behaviors will be some version of what we find in the family of origin that works or seems to work for the others, right? Whether they're siblings or whatever. The allowing, the field of allowing has to do with the relinquishment of the critical mind. The allowing, one of the things it points to in the quantum revelation is that instead it's good or bad. The second option could be that it's both. The third option could be that it's neither, right? I mean, we are stuck with the polarity. And it's when we relieve ourselves, and curiosity would do that, relieve ourselves of the polarity, that things start to open up. Because I used to talk about what I called the universal human paradigm. And the way I described it is that we look out and we see that there's something going on. It's not the way that it should be, and it's somebody's fault. You know, so it's kind of a mindset that is literally a lens through which we see. So the more space, the more ease, just as occurred for you in the snorkeling today. That's a great example and an experience of relaxing the mind. Yeah.
Could you say that again? There's something wrong. No,
No, there's a way that it should be.
there's a way it should be.
It's not that way,
It's not that way, and it's someone's.
and it's somebody's fault,
Not mine.
not mine. No. Yeah, so that's this kind of stance that came with what we refer to metaphorically as the fall, right? Good and evil, black and white, right and wrong. It's all gets installed and it's mind created. And so whereas prior to the fall, as a mythology, prior to that, we were out of our hearts connected to everything, to God, to the garden, to the beauty, to, in quotes, whoever was there, each other. The minute that we fell, which was the eating of the knowledge of good and evil, the polarity, that was the fall. And so now we're caught in our mind trying to figure things out and label them and believe that we know them when we know their name, right? As if we've experienced them. No, we've had a mental experience of a word, of a label. So as we undo, and that's what I think this shift in consciousness that's occurring in, as far as I can tell, planet-wide, out of the mind and into the heart, we're coming back into a greater possibility of true knowing, of true knowledge, a frequency that when expressed impacts the field with a new reality. A reality that's not caught in judgment, that's not caught in polarity. So this is the healing of the planet has to do with coming home to our own heart on our own behalf. The first step, that's what we do in the 6 steps, is clear up our self-rejection, because once that's gone, you're here and you don't, and there's no more judgment of yourself. And consequently, there's no more judgment of others, of circumstance, of situations. It's magic.
Holly, I have a kind of a situation this morning that goes along with all of this.
Uh-huh.
I started working on this cross stitch. It's been 20 years in the making.
Cross stitch is always that way.
Right. Yeah, when I was pregnant, I got almost all of it done. And then I just have back stitch. That's it. It's a masterpiece once it's done, but I've been carrying it around for the last 20 years. Anyways, I one of the bundles that I needed, I went looking for it and it was gone. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So then I went into the kind of the judgment of all of it.
Mhm.
Where is it? Oh, if I was more organized, oh my goodness, I've moved so many times. This is what's caused it. You know, I'm like, well, okay, instead of doing all this, maybe I'm supposed to go get the color I need at the store and I'm gonna meet somebody fabulous. Who knows? Like, what's distracting me to? All right, well, we'll see how this all goes, right? And then as I'm sitting there getting ready, I look over and there's a box under my bed and I'm, oh, let me just look in this. And I open it up and there is the bundle. Like, there's no way this
Right.
could have happened.
That's right.
It's right there. And I'm like, oh, that's so more convenient. It's just, once you like let into that and it's just kind of the fun and the joy of, all right, well, where is this directing me to then? Like, what? Yes, I need to organize better. It would be more helpful if I was organized better for myself, but once you like let into it and just give yourself,
Right, that's right,
oh, it's just been a day.
yeah. And the fun of surprise.
It was a very fun surprise.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I once lost a ring that I designed, and the man that I was involved with over a few years, after my second husband committed suicide, which meant he was a very brave guy. But he gave me this diamond and I designed a ring with it. And at some point I lost it. And I was pretty sure that I knew where the restaurant was, where I'd taken it off to wash my hands or something. And we went back there and looked for it. And I looked through all of the clothes that I'd had on and others too. And nothing afar until I had completely dissolved any attachment to that ring. And then I found it in the pocket of the pants I was wearing that night. And it wasn't in there before more than 6 people had looked. So it's like, no, the field is alive and well and it can fool you and it will. Right? It's like relax, allow, open. And in that frequency of allowing is the opportunity for everything to show up and then change too. You know, it's like there's no limitation. There's no, it ought to be this way. It's such the freedom of creation and the fun of it when the mind is not clamping down on our self rejection. All judgment is self-judgment. If you start judging out there, remind yourself of that, because without the lens of self-judgment, what's out there is just what's happening. It doesn't mean anything. So it's the practice is really dramatic and also dramatic in the way in which it begins to show up as your reality. And curiosity is a great one, you know, yeah. A little step away from polarity, good and bad. I wonder. Yeah. Where are we time-wise? About 6 minutes. You have 6 minutes.
That actually works, Polly, because at least twice in the last year, I've misplaced a piece of jewelry. And, you know, there's a lot of people in and out of the house.
Right,
And it would be easy to go, oh, somebody stole it.
right.
And both times I went, no, relax. It's where you left it. And as long as you stay relaxed and remember it's where you left it, it'll turn up. And in both cases, within a few weeks, the item turned up. I assume where I left it, I couldn't swear, but anyway, I came across it.
Mhm.
And both times it was just a conscious, no, don't
Yeah.
get bent out of shape.
Um,
It's, nobody took it, it's where I left it. And that worked, both
Yeah,
times.
well, it works based on entanglement theory, you know, and which is the invisible aspect of the quantum field, where everything that's been related or has had interaction has an entanglement aspect to it. There's a physicist named, I forget his first name, his last name is Bell, and he created something called Bell's theorem. And what it showed was that a particle in a lab, say in Northern California somewhere, that was related to a particle that's now in Japan and another lab there, that when this particle in Northern California is interacted with, the response is immediate with the particle that had been associated with in Japan. Which proves that there's no time and space, right? It's all here, it's all this. And it's and so it's like when you created the field of allowing with those pieces of jewelry, then things, I mean, I don't think we can catch them. I used to try once. I was really getting into the idea that consciousness created form. I would think, well, my toothbrush is not there if I'm not there. So I would try to rush right in and catch it not being there. It's there. It's still, it's so fast. And so it's a trippy, it's a trippy adventure to live understanding the nature of reality as quantum, for sure. And this is just the beginning of it in terms of all kinds of technology and human experience.
I'd like to share a piece.
Yes, please.
My phone attempted to go swimming in EM. And so I got a replacement and didn't remember the password for the Apple. So between Walmart, Costco, I was like affirming, I believe in miracles. I pulled into the parking spot and just took a breath. And the old phone turned on just long enough for me to get what I needed off of the phone. It was completely black.
Right.
I mean, multiple times. And I was able to take screenshots with my new phone and, it was really kind of cool. That happened this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The mystery abounds, really. If we're not set on seeing the linear sequentiality, which is what our minds do, right? And I don't get fed on time, I'm not good enough. It's so obvious, right? But the field of allowing is so much aliveness there. And the quantum field I think it's consonant with it. I think it's the same thing in a certain way. I think that the field of allowing is our access to the quantum field.
It feels benevolent.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Star.
That's a lovely note to
Yeah.
pause on. Let me just turn off the